Okay, it should be live streaming now.
All right, there it is.
And you still do need to give me one moment though, because even though it tells you guys it's live streaming, it literally isn't on my screen and I have to mute YouTube or I get an echo.
Oh, sure.
And I
No,
just did it. Just did it. Caught it really quickly before I got that echo. So I am ready for roll if you are calling to order, Madam Chair.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and call us to order at 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time. And Madam Secretary, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and take a roll call for us.
Okay, and I'm sharing my screen. Ms. McCardle.
Present.
Mr. Watkins.
Here.
Mr. Hagopian.
Here.
I am here. I almost called myself. Oh my goodness. Mr. Blankenship. So don't have Mr. Blankenship at the moment. Give me one moment.
He is not feeling well. He will not be on the call tonight.
Okay, Mr. Malagon.
Present.
Mr. Nikela.
Here.
Mr. Rufo. Okay. I don't know if anyone has texted him. Ms. Yanuskavich.
Here.
Mr. Benner. I don't see Mr. Benner. Mr. Dassing. Mr. Rufo just entered, so I will, or he's entering. Did we have Mr. Dassing?
We did not, but I did notify him.
Okay, let me just mark Mr. Rufo as present. Mr. Ford.
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Ms. Hayes.
I'm here.
Mr. Tunyevich.
Here.
Mr. Alfstad.
Present.
Mr. Cowan.
Martin Cowan is present.
Mr. Hall. Okay, I don't see Mr. Hall. Give me one moment. Mr. Hirsch.
Present.
Mr. Hyman.
I'm here.
Mr. Redpath.
Yes.
Ms. Vest. Okay. Right, Madam Chair, we have absent Mr. Blankenship, Mr. Benner, Mr. Dassing, Mr. Hall, and Ms. Vest. So for in Mr. Benner's absence, that will be Mr. Cowan will be sitting in for him, and Mr. Dassing's absence, Mr. Hyman will be sitting in for him. And there is no Ms. Best is, excuse me, I am so terrible with that. Ms. Best is still, as far as I know, regional alternate. We don't have a Region 7 rep, so there's nobody here for Region 7.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and move to public comment now. Okay, so if anyone would like to give public comment, please figure out the raise hand reaction. So at the bottom, it looks like things did get moved around a little bit. Oh, there we go. It's more if you have your full screen like I do. And we're going to start with non-LNC members, and then we'll jump to LNC members. And first up, we have Ms. Hannah Goodman, LPCO chair. Please go right ahead.
Good evening. I would just first like to thank all the LNC members who took time to attend the presentation Colorado gave on our state's political strategy. We were really happy to provide information and education to all of you. And I would just like to reaffirm Colorado's report in the Region 1 report that we are not endorsing Republicans. And we are also running Libertarian candidates. Those I know are rumors that have been going around. We have issued a Liberty Pledge to GOP candidates here in Colorado, and it will be up to the delegates at our convention to make the final decision. I would also like to report that the Colorado GOP has changed their bylaws only just a few weeks ago to be able to endorse candidates outside of their party. This past election, they endorsed 3 Libertarian candidates here in Colorado, not the other way around. So with that, we would like to point out that we are running Libertarian candidates as well, and we are very excited about our anti-war candidate, James Wiley, against Lauren Boebert, who now has the full attention of the Colorado press for that run. So hopefully this puts to bed any more rumors and misinformation that may come around about the strategy here in Colorado. So thank you all for your time getting information about that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Goodman. Up next, we have Harrison Kemp, Chair of the Libertarian Party of Maine.
Hi, thank you for having me and let me speak. Right now, the Libertarian Party of Maine is gearing up for yet another lawsuit against the state of Maine. It appears that they have not been following the court's ruling from our last lawsuit by including us on the registration cards for folks, since they didn't have us on them this past election day. So we are going to be suing the state for relief in that, hopefully getting some money and getting more time. But most importantly, getting the state to admit that they did not follow the court's ruling. We also have a big registration drive going on for permanent party status. We're about 75% of the way done. We are in the final push to get the last 1,500 or so that we need. And if anyone is interested in learning more about that or donating to what we have going on, lpme.org. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kemp. Up next, we have Mr. Ford, then we'll jump to our secretary, and then Mr. Malcolm.
Now imagine a world, and I'm going to follow on Mr. Kemp's testimony, if you will, but imagine a world where litigation occurs at the highest level, if you will, legislation is enabled and passed and put into law, and the state of Maine still refuses to put the Libertarian Party on as a registrant in paperwork available at a major series of elections. That's what we're running into in Maine. Mr. Kemp went to vote as what he will do, and when asked to, he asked to change his address on his registration. He was handed a card, and they had no idea who he was. And he said, "Well, where's the Libertarian check mark?" "Well, you can't register as a Libertarian." What? That's what we're dealing with in Maine. Listen, all states are important. You know, each state needs to understand that every state in America is important to the libertarian cause, but Maine occupies a unique role. Maine uses ranked choice voting for the presidential election. It's a split electoral district, and its constituency, much like, well, and by the way, congratulations to Colorado for their principal stand, but much like Colorado, has a significant independent voter rolls. So when the state of Maine ignores a lawsuit ruling, when they overtly fail to distribute basic information about the Libertarian Party status, this is what we're dealing with. It's astonishing. I'm shocked or surprised by little in this world, but this one's right up there. So we're asking people, we're going to be mounting some litigation. LP, the Libertarian Party of Maine is lpme.org/donate. We're asking for small contributions. We're going to get some sweat equity and some people to donate some time for the litigation. But it's a critical point, not only to win the litigation or achieve a settlement, but also to point out to the people of Maine how craven and degenerate their government is. So if anyone can just contribute a few dollars, and we understand that people are under pressure everywhere in the party to support a variety of great candidates, a variety of great causes, but a few dollars to the Libertarian Party of Maine means we could take on the world. And I continue to be impressed by their success up there in moving the ball and hopefully achieving full party status or maintaining full party status for the presidential election. But we could use some help. So if everyone could take a few minutes and, you know, one less trip to Dunkin's or Starbucks and $5 or $10 and everybody kicks in, we can achieve yet another big win in Maine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Up next, we have our secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had several things, and I hope Ms. Goodman don't mind me piggybacking on something she said as well, because I think there might be still some misunderstanding. As she stated, the board does not nominate candidates, and that's misinformation that's going around. And the delegates are bound by our bylaws, and our bylaws prohibit the endorsement of Republican candidates. The delegates can choose not to run a candidate in a certain race, which happens, you know, multiple times. We once had somebody who just switched from the Republican Party try to, you know, get our nomination when it was obvious they were not a libertarian. So, any rumors of Colorado having any chance in the world of endorsing Republicans is just absolutely false. It's prohibited by our bylaws. And I say that as chair of the Colorado Judicial Committee. Secondly, this is to LNC members, not guests, though guests who register late might not get approved. LNC members, you've got to register for these meetings when the notice goes out. I can't be approving registrations in the middle of a meeting. You know who you are. I'm not going to say a specific name. Lastly, to everyone else, I sent out the latest preliminary delegation totals. If you're a state chair or you are speaking with your state chair and they didn't get it, have them get in contact with me, because maybe I have a wrong email address or something for them. And leading up into convention, if anyone has any questions on procedure or anything that has anything to do with what I would know about in the secretarial portion, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I am available to provide information and training. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Up next, we have Mr. Malagon and then myself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to say on behalf of California, we're very excited to be hosting the LNC for the next in-person meeting. If you are in the area or would like to come out to California, it's going to be the 2nd and 3rd of December when we have that in-person meeting. We will be having a fundraiser gala Saturday night, but of course, you're welcome to come and join us for business if long meetings are your thing. We are very excited to host you, and I think it'll be a good time for everybody. I will also just end here by saying that I did notice that we have an executive session item toward the end, so I did preemptively ask Ms. Eiler if she would make herself available to monitor the room if that's something that the chair is interested in. She is on standby toward the end. I don't believe that she registered, just to piggyback a little bit off she didn't anticipate being on this call. So I did kind of try to tag her in at the last minute. So she may try to register. I told her I'd give her about 10 minutes-ish notice before that agenda item. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you, Mr. Malagon. We had elections over the last week. Congratulations to the Libertarian candidates who got elected. That's really awesome. Thank you so much to everyone else who ran for putting in the time and effort. I know it is exhausting and it can be really time consuming to run for office. I want you to know I appreciate it so much. I've been making calls to candidates. I'm sorry, I want you to know I've been making calls to candidates and I've been getting some help from region reps as well. So if you haven't heard from us yet, we will definitely be reaching out to you. And we're really interested in hearing feedback from you as well. Just how your experience was. We'll be hosting sort of a postmortem Q&A, share your thoughts, anything you want to share with us in about a month. And that's all from me. No other hands up. Okay, so I guess one more thing. There's a mailer that went out bragging about how awesome I am. So thank you so much for sending out that mailer. What's so unfortunate is that the salary amount for Mr. Paget was greatly inflated. I wish it was that much. So if anyone wants to make a motion to increase his salary, if you'd like to send in your support after getting that mailer, you think it should be even more, please write us and let us know. All right, so let's jump to our first agenda item, and I believe it is a Convention Oversight Committee update from Mr. Malagon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to replace this agenda item with a motion to give Mr. Paget $100 billion. Am I allowed to do that? Is that in order?
No, that is out of order. I'm sorry, it was not previously noticed, but it was hilarious.
Damn. Okay. Well, on to COC updates then. So we do have 2 new members on the COC. That would be Madam Secretary and Ms. Hayes, the Region 4 rep. So thank you both for taking on this task. As you guys have seen from just the last couple of meetings, it is no easy feat. For those of you that may not remember, I was appointed as the new chair of the convention committee. I believe it was the first week of October after Mr. Bowen's resignation from the LNC and as chair of the COC. Just a few quick updates here. So early bird does end December 31st. All the pricing that you see on the website, I would encourage you, if you're on the fence about getting a package, I would encourage you to roll the dice and do so before December 31st. Speakers will not be announced until after early bird ends, so expect those notices and those emails to go out in January. So again, I would encourage you all to roll the dice. We do have some great speakers. I've been working with the chair, and while we are not announcing any speakers yet, I guarantee that you will not be disappointed. You might be disappointed if you end up paying full price, but if you want to wait, that's fine. A little bit more money for the party. If we're going to move to extend Mr. Padgett's salary, then that, it's okay. So we'll get a little bit more money that way. So I will also be going back to Washington, D.C. on Wednesday through Saturday. I have to do my own walkthrough. We've determined over the last couple of meetings that a lot of things were lost, and to posterity, it seems people either didn't keep good records. Also, the Hilton manager that was assigned to our account has changed. So I think the initial one that was supposed to be taking notes and keeping all of the records for stuff is resigning or has already resigned. We were assigned a new manager as a result, and through a bit of email correspondence and phone calls, it's become very, very clear that I'm going to have to go through, do my own walkthrough, and make sure that all of our ducks are in a row so that we don't have any sort of ghastly surprises later on. So I will be heading out in later this week. I will also, after that walkthrough and after we settle a few things, I will be able to provide more info on suites. I know some of you have emailed the COC asking about what the price ranges are for suites this upcoming year, in addition to the exhibit tables and how they're going to be laid out. So I hope to have more on that when I return. I will also end by just asking for general volunteers. We will need people to take tickets, maybe work registration, in addition to tellers. So I think the secretary has already started asking people and started compiling a list of those interested to help be tellers at convention, but there are other volunteer duties. So I encourage anybody that is looking to volunteer to reach out to the COC. You can email me at adrian.malagon@lp.org, or you can reach out to anybody else on the COC should you wish. So the secretary, Ms. Hayes, Mr. Hirsch, Mr. Kraus. So we'd be happy to accept any and all volunteers, and we'll be making some general asks, but I would ask that the regional reps perhaps start asking their respective chairs to see if any of their executive committee members or regular members would like to volunteer to help the convention go a bit more smoothly than it has in the past. So if the secretary would like to add anything, or Ms. Hayes that I perhaps missed, now would be the time. Otherwise, I will field questions.
Yeah, I would, Mr. Malagon.
Please.
Yeah, on the issue of the tellers, while we have people here, I still am looking for some volunteers. So if there's anyone who knows anyone or anyone in the room would like to volunteer, you'll learn a great deal about conventions that way, and it's extremely rewarding. And I don't know if this will mean anything to you. I'm rather proud of this fact, is that I've had a core group who's volunteered for me for several years, and when I've asked them again if they'd like to be a teller for the third convention in a row, a great deal of them said yes. So when you have volunteers that want to volunteer again, it can mean one of two things. They just really love the volunteer job, or they liked volunteering for me. I'd like to flatter myself to think it's a little bit of both, but it could be just that being a teller is a lot of fun. And it is. And you're going to learn a lot that you can bring home to your state conventions. So I'd really love for your states to send me some tellers. I probably could use about 10 more. We are really trying to make this vote telling go fast so that it's less work for everyone and more enjoyable for the delegates. And by the way, one last thing, I'm the one who insisted. So if anyone's mad at Adrian for thinking he has to go out there, that was me. Just at those meetings.
Well, I'm mad.
Well, you could be mad at me. You're always mad at me. The convention chair has to be intimately familiar with the ins and outs of everything. And any amount of time or money that's spent sending him back out there is going to repay itself tenfold.
So, well,
I
Mr.
will
Malagon,
actually
go ahead.
Yes, if I could just add to that really quickly. So to save the party the most amount of money, I have a friend that has graciously offered to give me buddy passes. So we will be saving about just close to $700 to $800 on the flight alone. We did get I spoke to the hotel manager. I'm getting the room at the discounted rate that I believe that we got for the LNC meeting out there. So we're cutting costs all the way around. While I don't eat, that shouldn't be too big of a problem. Maybe one meal a day. I do drink, but obviously that doesn't count. So that's on my own dime. So no expenditures there. And Mr. Blankenship, should his schedule allow, I know he's under the weather now, and he is still, I believe, trying to see if he can make it work. But he has offered to assist me with the walkthrough. A walkthroughs, we're probably going to do it on Thursday and Friday to make sure that everything is in order. And the COC is meeting on Wednesday, so we'll have I'll already be in Washington DC. So we're going to go over everything and make sure that all of our questions are answered. Any sort of concerns or things that we haven't thought of will be thought of. Then we'll compile a huge list of everything that we have to have done while I'm out there to maximize efficiency moving forward. So I want to just help. Thank you for the secretary for bringing that up, and I just want to put some people's minds at ease there.
Thank you, Mr. Malagon. Yeah, I'm concerned that it sounded like they didn't even understand our floor plan at this point. So it's like freak out, but don't freak out. Okay,
That is correct.
Any questions? Any questions for the Convention Oversight Committee before we jump to the next agenda item? All right. Well, if there's none, our next agenda item is Ballot Access Committee update. Now, I don't see Mr. Nana on the call, but I believe we have Mr. Redpath, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you had anything that you'd like to share, I would give you the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give you the best update I can. I wasn't anticipating this, but I can tell you a few things. First of all, Harrison Kemp was on here regarding Maine earlier. I spoke with him earlier today. The problems notwithstanding regarding the registration cards being printed up incorrectly, he pointed out the problem to the Maine Secretary of State, I believe, pointed out the problem and got new cards out to a number of polling places. These are registration cards that are important because there is same-day voter registration in Maine. And so apparently they admitted their mistake and got new voter registration cards out on Election Day. He says they're up to about 3,400 registrations. He anticipates getting this whole thing done by early December. It's got to be done by Friday, December 29. If we're going to get ballot status in Maine in 2024, all of the cards have to be turned in, and the result of which we have at least 5,000 registered voters. Everything's got to be turned in by December 29. North Dakota, I was in contact by a text message with Andy Jacobs today. He said they're at 4811. It's a slow go, but I think Andy still anticipates being able to finish the North Dakota petition drive in this calendar year. Ohio is underway. I really don't have any numbers except they were at 750 roughly. Bob Lynch is there petitioning. He got 203 on Election Day. Milton Lukens was up there. 120 signatures, I believe, ballpark he got on Election Day in Cincinnati. Bob is in the Columbus area. We also had somebody in Cleveland, but I don't have a report on any signatures. So by the LNC meeting, we should have a much firmer idea of where we're standing in Ohio. But it is rolling, and Bob Lynch is there and petitioning in a diehard manner, I think, in Columbus. Let's see. So there's Maine, there's North Dakota, Ohio, and then Kentucky. I've been in contact with the Kentucky chair, Charles. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his last name. Ken Molman is the executive director in Kentucky. They are meeting. The Kentucky board is meeting this coming Thursday evening. I've asked them to pull together, first of all, an estimated number of volunteer SIGs. They need 5,000 valid SIGs. Ohio needs 5,000 valid SIGs. North Dakota, 7,000 valid SIGs. But in any event, I've said that, hey, Milton Lukens lives in Louisville. He's there. He's willing to petition. Let's go. Let's get this show on the road. And so they are meeting this coming Thursday. I've asked how many volunteer SIGs do you think you can get and how much money the LPKY can kick in, and then to take that package to the EC for a motion to fund the Kentucky petition drive. And that's all that comes to mind right now. Of course, Arkansas is over. We're on. And that's, I think I've run through all the states where we've got something going right now.
Great. Any questions? Any questions for Mr. Redpath? Questions about ballot access? Just in general. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Redpath. If there's no questions, we're going to jump to our next agenda item, and that is appoint Mike Seebeck as interim platform committee chair. And this was noticed by Ms. Harlos.
Okay, so we do need an interim platform committee chair. They will be starting their meetings the beginning of January. I'd like to just take care of this before our December meeting when we'll have a budget. Just an FYI, I did send an email out to all of the current appointees, being those appointed by the LNC and those for the state chairs that are presently on the ball that have already nominated, to see if anyone else was interested in being interim chair. It is customary that the interim platform committee chair is one of the LNC appointees, but that's just a custom, not a rule. So I first wanted to ask them if they had any objection to Mr. Seebeck, or if any of them were also interested in the position, in which case I would have asked the LNC to take a vote. No one else indicated interest. No one indicated objection. And I got multiple private emails to myself in support of Mr. Seebeck. So I am moving to appoint Mike Seebeck as the interim platform committee chair.
I'll second that.
Seconded.
You're muted, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Mike Seebeck as interim platform committee chair. Do we have any objections? Because now is the time. Mr. Malagon?
Not an objection, just a quick question for the secretary, if I may. Is the interim chair just someone that runs the meetings, just something until someone is actually appointed when it comes to January?
Yeah, but I'm going to give full disclosure here. I don't know the statistics, but more times than not, whoever is interim chair ends up being permanent chair. It's just the way it's worked out for every committee that I've been involved in, but that's not a guarantee. And what platform, it's weird because there's still a lot of people who haven't appointed yet. But yes, that is all we are appointing to, is to set up the first meeting, prepare potentially a manual if they follow the blueprint that I had done. And at their very first meeting, the committee themselves elect their permanent chair. But for instance, with bylaws, I was appointed temporary bylaws and rules committee chair, and then I was subsequently elected by the committee.
Okay, you answered my follow-up question too. Thank you. And I have no objection, just to be clear. I don't need to piss Mr. Seebeck off even more. So,
Mr. Chinyevich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a brief point. I think it's a simple matter of privilege. As you may have seen in the chat, Ms. Vest is having difficulty accessing this meeting. She claims to have pre-registered. She does not have access to her lp.org email. I wanted to check in if it's permissible briefly with the secretary to see if it's possible to grant her access while she's in her vehicle. Thank you.
Mr. Chinyevich, the way our meetings are set up, I don't have a link. You get the link through registration. It was made clear to everybody, including Ms. Vest, in her onboarding email that we do not use our LP emails for registration because we've had security issues. If she registers under that alternate email that she has, which I'm aware of, she'll get a link. I I don't have the capability. I don't
Yeah.
have a meeting link. It's generated by Zoom. I do get an email notification when someone registers and I approve it. If she does that, I'd be more than glad to approve her, but she needs to register.
Okay. Yeah. She claims that she registered under that email address, but you did not receive that confirmation. Is that correct?
That's correct. And about,
Okay.
and Mr. And about half hour before the meeting, just to be sure it popped up at the top of everyone's email box.
I saw you did it again.
Yeah.
I saw it. So.
I forced Zoom to resend the confirmation email because, you know, it's hard to dig in your email boxes. So if she had
Right.
previously registered, it would be at the top of her email box.
Great. Appreciate it. And I suspect we're dealing with either a typo or something like that in terms of the address. Sorry to interrupt the meeting, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Back to Mr. Seebeck's nomination. Let me ask one more time just to jump us back on track. Any objections? Because if not, we're going to appoint. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, hearing no objections, Mr. Seebeck is appointed as interim platform committee chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Seebeck. Okay, our next agenda item is Florida Fishing Fundraiser by Mr. Nicola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little bit of history on this. The Florida Fishing Fundraiser is actually something that we were hoping to do back in 2020, which obviously got sidetracked for obvious reasons. And so it's something that we're potentially looking to bring back again. Down in the Florida Keys, we have the Island Grill. That's one of our restaurants. And we have a beautiful beach in the back. And obviously there's a lot of fantastic sports fishing that goes along year round. And we figure this would be an opportunity to raise some money for the Libertarian Party and give our donors something to give money to, but also enjoy. I think a great opportunity to get people together, build up some camaraderie, and just generally have a really fun, amazing weekend. So it's not officially official yet. Want to make that clear. I have spoken to some staff on this, and I'm sure I'll need to get some permission on a few things, but wanted to let you guys know that if this does go live, we're looking probably for March, sometime in the spring. It will be down in Islamorada at the Island Grill. We'll probably be looking to go out for at least a 3-quarter fishing day out of Bud and Mary's in Islamorada, probably rent a sport fishing boat and do a cook your catch at the restaurant. That's the Island Grill. And so just so everybody's clear, that is our restaurant down here. We would be obviously benefiting from the trip, from the rental, as well as some of the just not just the venue, but some of the cooking, the appetizers, things like that. But I'm going to make sure that we give the best price possible. And quite frankly, during this time of year, that's typically wedding season. So if we do block out a weekend, we're going to be losing out big time on a major wedding. Typically, you know, a couple, maybe at least 100 people. So depending on what we get for the trip, I just want the party to make money and us to cover our costs. So that's pretty much that. It's in planning phase right now, but I talked to Luke about it and a few others, and this could be something that I think would be a lot of fun and something that a lot of donors might be interested in. We're doing something similar for the Florida State Party as a bit of a pilot program at the end of next month for New Year's. So that's in the works. That's more of a state local thing. And I would hope that we could open it up to the Libertarian Party writ large and do some advertising and get some larger ticket donors to come down. And so I'm not going to be in California, unfortunately, because of a new store opening right around that time. So it'll be up to you guys if we decide to do it in the next meeting in March of 2024. Then we could probably try to work something out where we have the day of the fishing trip to where everybody can, if they can't attend the fishing trip, at least the LNC can, if they want, come down to the Florida Keys, come to Islamorada, have dinner, and just hang out with folks. So I think we can do something really fun and really engaging and get the LNC involved. So that's pretty much the plan. We're hoping to meet regularly, myself with some of the fundraising staff to try to plan this out. Again, it's not officially official yet, but it has been talked about quite a few times in the past, and I think I'd really love to see it happen this time. So that's the pitch, that's the idea, and I hope we can get something going and make a really awesome trip out of it.
Can I ask Mr. Nikela, how far away is this from any place where we could potentially have an LNC meeting in Florida?
That's a good question. If you fly into Miami International Airport, Isla Mirada is about an hour and a half away, roughly. So it would be a little bit of a drive going south. We did have an LNC meeting at the airport in Miami. This was, I think it was last term. There are a lot of, now we're at spring break, but if you pick a hotel towards the west end of Miami and not towards the east end where all the fun is, then you can typically find something a little bit cheaper, potentially. And then we didn't have an LNC meeting in Miami. We have an LNC meeting in Miami. Was it last term or the term before then? Maybe it was a term before.
Let me ask one more question, then we'll jump to Mr. Malagon. Is this something that could take place during a weekday, Monday through Friday, or does it need to be on a weekend?
It could definitely be a weekday. That's up to you guys. We could definitely do it anytime you want. Not a problem. We'll just need to get that date reserved, and so that way we can get the boat and just reserve the space. That way we know what day to expect and reserve. It's a beautiful beach. If you go to keysislandgrill.com, you can check it out. We're also on Instagram, kind of see what we're working with, but we'll make it really, really cool for everybody.
Nice. All right. Thank you. Mr. Malagon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You took one of my questions. I guess one of the ones that I would ask is, would there be, I had two questions. So one, would there be a proposal that would be drawn up and submitted so that we could vote on something theoretically in December here in California? And two, I hear a lot about this Florida man. I've always wanted to meet him. He seems like an interesting bloke. Would he be there? Would he be able to make an appearance?
Absolutely. Typically, the ritual to summon Florida Man starts about a week before, so I'll make sure we're prepared. And Adrian, you'll be the first one to meet him.
Delightful.
We'll have a fun time, and yeah, it'll probably for the venue. It's probably going to be really maybe I would say somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000. That's with food included. We're going to do a cook your catch, and some other things. So I'll work it out with Luke. We'll try to get a proposal written up. And then I would say for the actual boat for the fishing, you're probably looking at a couple grand. And yeah, so I would say total, you're looking around probably 5,000. And I would recommend selling tickets for the fishing trip for, man, at least 1,000 a piece or more. So we can kind of figure that out. But I'll get some basics going, and I'll get with Luke, and I'll try to get you guys something before December 2nd so you all can discuss it and vote on it.
All right. Thank you. We have Mr. Tunevich.
I just wanted to say I think that's a great idea. I did several similar fundraisers for my alma mater back in the 90s and early 2000s on our 41-foot vessel. And while it was not a fishing trip, it was a lot of fun. There was some was purposely for fundraising, other was for recognition of existing major donors who were in the area. This was a university thing, and it was a lot of fun. So I think it's a great idea. I look forward to seeing more about it.
Thank you very much. Okay. There's nothing else on this agenda item. I will make sure to work with staff and get that drafted up. If it's conflicts of interest thing, we'll vote on it if people feel that we need to do that. If not, we're just going to move forward because it sounds like an awesome idea. And I'll make sure that we have an update for you at the next meeting. Or at least the next online meeting. Okay, our next agenda item is duopoly support by inter-party assets. This is a notice by Mr. Nikela.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this motion is more of I just wanted to kick the tires on whether or not, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be there in December, but if this is something that the LNC wanted to discuss in December. Full disclosure, has nothing to do with Colorado, but there is some concern by certain folks, myself included, that certain assets of the Libertarian Party, certain state affiliates are opening up their bylaws to potentially put themselves in a position where they would allow themselves to violate the bylaws, as you can see there. That includes endorsements and certain other things. And this might be something we want to get ahead of, or at least make it known as to what our understanding is so that state affiliates are aware. I know, Karen Ann, did you have anything you wanted to interject on this as well?
Yeah, I put up in the list here. The bylaws committee has taken a look at this issue because it's been an issue, never mind whatever current controversies are going on. And one reason Ms. Goodman had come to the meeting was to assure everybody that Colorado is not one of these current controversies. Colorado is certainly not any reason that the bylaws committee was looking at this issue. But up on the screen is language that has passed out of the bylaws committee. That does not mean it's going to make it to our report. We have limited time and we need to cull our report. But this has been an ongoing issue for as long as I've been in the party. Not just the idea of potentially endorsing a candidate from another party, but the fantastically vague wording of our bylaw, which says we're not allowed to endorse someone who's a member of another party for public office. People have argued about what that means, though by far the vast majority of the party has said, if you're registered in that party and running under their ballot line, come on, if that's not membership, what is? But it's been a source of controversy since other parties don't necessarily have membership in the same way we do. Or if they do, we don't have access to their member rolls. They're not necessarily going to give them to us. And the other issue that's been an ongoing controversy is fusion candidates. Technically, every fusion state has violated our bylaws every single year. And the reality is the fusion states are going to use the tools available to them. So we might as well at least set rules for it in place. So this is the language on the screen. I had a very long discussion with Mr. Nana, who was concerned it would negatively impact Ohio. After talking it through, he realized it would not, that those two words there, if available, after the partisan designation, carry a lot of load in this proposal. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at this language. We think it's very good. That will help solve a lot of these problems and make it very clear that our affiliates cannot endorse candidates from other parties except in certain limited circumstances in fusion states. And something I would like to have on the record, and I know a lot of states don't like this, but parliamentary wise, this is the case. When you're an affiliate, you are under the national bylaws, and our national bylaws say that affiliates have autonomy except as provided by these bylaws. And one of these bylaws is you can't endorse candidates from another party. Even if an affiliate passes a bylaw that says they can, and they would have to get their own advice. I can tell you my personal opinion is such a bylaw is null and void, because if you're going to be an affiliate, you at least have to abide by the very few provisions that are in our national bylaws for affiliation. There are very few. Like one of them is you can't take actions inconsistent with the statement of principles, which is in this very same bylaw. So, we want to clarify the language and just remind affiliates they do have some rules that they need to abide for, even though they're granted autonomy in like wide swaths. If somebody wants to be a group that just endorses a bunch of other people, they're free to do that, but not as an affiliate of the Libertarian Party. You are not allowed to do that and be our affiliate.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I just want to make sure that New York is okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you read this, it says so. Let me just say this out loud in case anyone, because I find reading things out loud exposes errors. So that's the way we do most of our amendment and bylaws committee. We read it out loud where it seemed great when we wrote it on paper, and then we're like, oh. So no affiliate party shall endorse any candidate for public office in any partisan election unless the candidate A, is not listed under any other partisan ballot line unless the candidate is also listed under the affiliate party's ballot line. That covers fusion candidates right there. They can be on another ballot line as long as they're also on our ballot line. And B is registered to vote under the partisan designation of the affiliate party if available. So even in fusion states, they still have to primarily be a libertarian. This still would prohibit endorsing somebody who's primarily a Republican. But I could tell you most affiliate states, and the one fusion states, and the one I'm most familiar with is Oregon. They do require them to be primarily a libertarian. And this protects our unique identity, but also gives the affiliates some freedom to do fusion candidates.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Benner?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to weigh in on something that I think has caused a little bit of hullabaloo related to this on social media, is accusations that Montana LP is in violation of this. And after looking at their bylaws more thoroughly in its full context and talking to people in that state, I'd like to dispel that. And a good faith reading of, the post that you can see going around accusing them of that might indicate that. But they also have another bylaw that says these bylaws shall govern the Montana LP and the Montana LP county affiliates when not in conflict with LP bylaws. So I just want to repudiate accusations that they are in open, kind of rebellion against this bylaw. I don't believe that to be the case. That's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Benner, I hate to contradict you, and I'm sure I love Montana. Let me please get that. I used to be Region 1 representative. I have a soft spot in my heart for every single one of my former Region 1 states. They repealed that bylaw you just mentioned, and that makes it very problematic. However, I still believe, and other parliamentarians can disagree, that newly passed bylaw is null and void as long as they're an affiliate of the national party. They cannot have bylaws that contradict with the national bylaws. That is part of the condition of affiliation with the national party.
If they had repealed that, I was not aware. Thank you for that. But I agree with the reading of you, Madam Secretary, if that's the case.
We have someone from Montana on the call. He wanted to make himself available to answer questions. I don't want to drag that out too long. But if there's any questions from LNC members for Liam, he's on the call right now, Liam McCullum.
If there is, Madam Chair, just may I move to extend time, assuming I don't want to prematurely do it, but I think we're like at 3 minutes left. So I would move to extend time if there is an LNC member that would wish to hear from him.
I would wish to hear from him if he has something he'd like to say in response to any comments, but I don't have any questions. I've spoken with Liam, and none of this is meant as an attack against the Montana party. Again, as former Region 1 rep, I'll still fight like a tiger for my former Region 1 states.
Okay, Mr. Ford?
I do have a question for the individual from Montana. Again, not looking to attack, not looking more just to get some context, but under what reasoning was that bylaw changed? Thank you.
Okay, here. I think that's a reasonable request. So if there's no objection, we'll hear from Liam. But Liam, if you don't mind,
May I move to extend time by 10 minutes? I'd rather cut the 5 and just in case.
I was going to ask if Liam could keep it at 2 minutes.
Oh.
Do we want to just keep it at 5? Let's see. If there's no objection, going once, going twice. Okay, Liam, would you mind just giving us a little bit of backstory?
Yeah, of course. So just first of all, I was the person who introduced this amendment, and it did pass unanimously to allow the state party to endorse non-libertarians if the party believed it advanced libertarian principles. I am not aware of the bylaw change, which got rid of the part that if there is a conflict, nationals prevails. It was my understanding that is still in place. But I will say, after learning about just the general concerns, we were in violation with national bylaws. We met with the secretary and Madam Chair, and we generally came to the consensus that we will not endorse Republicans or Democrats, and that we are not in violation so long as we do not act on that bylaw change. We do not want any discord with the national party. But that being said, we do not think that we are ready to make a public retraction or try to make a big stir about this or retract the amendment, because Republicans and Democrats, unfortunately, because of the drama created due to the publicity, believe that we are preparing to endorse their opponents. And we actually think that this gives us a great image in Montana, because as for the reasoning behind this bylaw change, we actually believe that our image is being watered down because Republicans and Democrats have consistently run candidates in our names who are socialists and neocons, so we cannot establish a brand. So this was our way of kind of reclaiming our freedom of association and saying, okay, if you're going to run a socialist and they win the primary, we will endorse your opponent, or we at least can. So, and just behind the scenes, we're not going to, because we're in agreement that doing so would be a violation. But we think that it's good for the Montana Libertarian Party that we're in the press, that people think that this is going to happen on both sides. So yeah, that was kind of my reasoning. I think there's just general concern that the two parties, after they tried to introduce a bill to take us off the ballot in 2024.
Yeah.
This was a last measure, really.
Okay. Thank you, Liam. Let's take a last question from Mr. Ford.
Liam, I don't have any questions about your integrity or your desires to, reinforce our brand, our perspective, our philosophy. My only question, I'll just plant the seed. What happens when someone else comes along 5 years from now whose intentions aren't noble like yours? And I fear moving forward that someone will use this as a point. I mean, I'm no bylaw expert. I'll defer obviously to Madam Chair and Madam Secretary, but I worry about situations like that could be a problem moving forward. Thank you.
Liam, do you want to say just a couple of words and then we'll move on to our next agenda item?
Sure. I'm personally just not too worried about the fact that 5 years from now, the party will be taken over and some rogue actor will do this. The party is extremely unified despite all of the drama between caucuses. It's kind of incredible. We've gotten a lot of compliments about this. So I don't see that as really a concern, but I do appreciate it. I think obviously we can't act on this policy change, but in the future, I would hope that there would be more leniency from the national bylaws that allow a state like Montana to move forward with this. But yeah, it's not really my concern.
I will say that you guys have plenty of time to make changes. And I appreciate that you were willing to have a conversation about this publicly, and that it's touchy, because we're not trying to blow up your political strategy right now. And that's like something that we need to kind of figure out how to improve, is how do we keep our members informed and understand, what's going on without wrecking a state's political strategy and what they're trying to deal with. And I'm extremely sympathetic to the fact that you've had socialists and neocons and people who are just terrible and not your people running under your brand. That's frustrating. So I appreciate you coming on and chatting. And I think we're all good right now. And anything else, I think we can take care of conversations behind the scenes. So thank you for being here.
Sweet. Thank you.
All right. I think it is time to jump to our next agenda item. And that is request for authority for special rule of order by Bylaws and Rules Committee, noticed by Ms. Harless.
Okay, I'm gonna have to give a little bit of background. I'll make the motion, and if it's seconded, I'll give the argument. I would move to authorize the 2024 Bylaws and Rules Committee to adopt a special rules of order, allowing them to end or limit debate. And I hope someone would second, even if they don't understand, so that I can explain.
I will second it.
Okay.
Second, Mike Rufo.
Okay, well, Mike would understand. Okay, this gets into Robert's arcana, but committees cannot create their own rules of order. They're under what's in Roberts, and under Roberts, a lot of people don't know you're not allowed to call the question on committees, which means, in theory, as long as people keep bringing up new points, you can be debating the same question for 3 meetings. And we have on bylaws debated the same question for 6 to 8 hours. And it's been fruitful. So I'm not saying that as a criticism of the committee, but as we're coming to the end of our term, everyone is getting a bit crabby, including the chair, me. And there's a desire in the committee that when it's obvious that a majority of the committee is either supporting of something or not going to, that even if someone has more points to say, it's obvious no one's going to be convinced that we can call the question. We have about 15 more proposals to get through. We're not going to get through them all, and people are going to feel shorted that their proposal didn't get to. So the committee itself asked me to ask the LNC, and the request was without objection, to allow us to adopt a special rule of order, allowing us to end or limit debate. And what that would entail, allowing us to put time limits on our agenda if we decide to, or to allow members to call the question so that we can get through the rest of our proposals, which we are already going to have to winnow down. We have about 40 proposals, and realistically in convention, we're going to get to hear about 18 of them. So we need to winnow them down, but we need to at least get through them to have a universe to winnow down to. So I would, on behalf of the bylaws committee, we would really appreciate you allowing us to do this.
Okay, any questions?
And just one additional point. Why are we asking the LNC? Because you guys appointed the committee. As the appointing body, you have the authority to grant that.
All right, any questions for our secretary? Going once, going twice. Okay, so it's in the OneNote. The language is moved to authorize the 2024 Bylaws and Rules Committee to adopt special rules of order, allowing them to end or limit debate. As someone who has attended these meetings, I do think it's good. Oh, Mr. Tunyevich.
Thanks. Just a quick question, Madam Chair. Does this change apply solely for this term, or would this be a permanent ongoing change? Thank you.
Just this term is my understanding.
It's just the 2024 Bylaws and Rules Committee.
Thank you.
Mr. Malagon.
Why could we theoretically amend this to make this an evergreen sort of thing? As much as I do appreciate making the secretary a bit crabby at these meetings, I think it would behoove everyone to just have this carry on, especially for bylaws, because I think it's daunting instead of having to come to the LNC every time. Is that something that you would be open to? Or I'm going to vote in favor of this regardless, but is that something that we should consider, or is there a reason not to?
I don't think we can. We're not the appointing body for any other bylaws committee other than this one.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, sure. But I think this is a great practice we can do for the next LNC. We're setting a good example here.
And let me just be in defense, actually, of the practice of not being able to end debate. It's unusual. Our bylaws are not in good shape. It is unusual for a bylaws committee to have about 40 proposals. The reason Roberts doesn't allow committees to end debate is your proposals are better if you let everyone we've in the 6th hour of debate on something discovered fatal flaws on some really important proposals. It's not actually a bad practice. We're just coming at the end of our term with some bylaws that just need a lot of work. Our bylaws for a national party are not where they need to be. So this term, yes, but I really hope next term, if we get a lot of these passed, we'll have a much smaller universe, and the party will benefit from having the full, unhindered, tedious debate of the next bylaws committee. Bylaws committees are tedious by nature. I mean, it's just the way they are. And I do think 9 times out of the 10, not being able to call the question is a good thing. It's just not a good thing right now.
Speaking of which, time has expired. All right. Do we need any more discussion on this agenda item? Are we comfortable with a voice vote or do we need a roll call vote? Is there any objection to passing this? Limiting debate for the bylaws committee so that their meetings can have end times on each agenda item. Everyone understands, I think. Okay. Any objection? Last time, going once, going twice. Okay, I'm gonna say, hearing no objection, the motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for noticing that. Okay, back to our agenda. Our next agenda item is financial goals and update by me for 10 minutes. So we had a really good month in October. We made a little over $180,000 that month. In 2022, we had about 118K. The 2021, the year before that, I don't remember the exact note, but it was the exact number, but it was the highest month for revenue in a non-convention year. And that's because of the whole Reno reset situation. But we had really good numbers. So that's really exciting. We are working really hard to deliver a really good month for November as well. And staff is working very hard. I'm working very hard. I am exhausted. We could definitely use help from LNC members making calls to members, making thank you calls to candidates. That's something that we definitely need to wrap up. I'm doing a lot of that, and I'm happy to do it, but it will go faster, and I think our members will be happier if they hear from more of us. I'm going to get donate links for everybody so that you can have those and use those. And you don't have to just use them on social media. You can use them with your friends. If you want to try to help us with fundraising and reel new members in, that's great. I want to talk a little bit about how we've been doing it. So I'm running staff right now. I am your executive director. We are not hiring another executive director. We are saving money doing it the way that we're doing it now, and it's working. And staff is happy. They're getting along well, and it's great. This is a really good thing. We have turned things around financially. We are very busy. We keep a very tight calendar, which means we are putting out financial appeals almost every single day. And it takes a lot of work, and we have to put a lot of things together in advance. If you want to help us, that means if you have an idea or a question or something, you get it to us in advance. What part of the success is planning, 2 months ahead of time. So think about that sort of timeline for us. We are going to try to roll out a new website. We are looking for a web developer, someone to help us. We have really skilled staff and volunteers, but they have asked for additional assistance on that. Once we get that, that's going to help us generate additional revenue. So we're going full steam ahead on revenue. I do anticipate that we're going to be raking in $125 to $140 or $140,000 a month over the next, until the convention, as long as we're keeping a tight ship and fundraising very aggressively. That's the goal. That's what looks realistic. I would love it to be 180K every single month. And if we are able to switch to a new CRM, and I will be putting that on the agenda, if not me, someone will be putting that on the agenda for the December meeting, then you might see 180K month every month. I know that a lot of people have called me, other staff members, probably mentioned to LNC members, like, hey, I got this renewal mailer. It said, I needed to renew, but I renewed 4 months ago. Once we can eliminate mistakes like that are technical in nature, that's when we're going to start generating more revenue, because we're getting the right message to the right people. And when you do that, that means that they give you money. And you also don't waste money by sending out too many mailers, to people who it's inapplicable. It's not time for them to renew. So that's a little bit of an update on finances. We are getting there. We are not on track to have a giant membership, like monstrous membership that I wanted us to have at the beginning of the term. I'm extremely frustrated by that. But we are, I think, going to reclaim our numbers by May, which is great. Mr. Malagon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What was the number for October again?
Uh, it was 182 or 183,000.
And just to clarify, because I'd heard the same thing that the secretary had heard, was it like 175,000 of that was convention revenue? I saw something like that on Facebook. I just wanted to clarify. I heard it was an absurd amount, so I wanted to.
No, I wish it was. I put some of the breakdown on the list, and I'm waiting on our fundraising director to help me with the rest of the breakdown. It is a little difficult to navigate it in Civi CRM. Madam Secretary.
Several items. And you don't have to answer any of them if you don't want to, because you know that I'm a troublemaker sometimes. First, this is somewhat related because financials have to do with membership. Do we know when we're going to be able to, I'll ask the questions and I'll just give you the time.
Sure.
When we'll be able to let the states know what their delegation totals are, because I'm getting that question a lot.
By the 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What was number? Oh crap!
Sorry.
I forgot what the other one was, but it's on the. I do know I wanted to say along the lines of the convention revenue. That has been a consistent. Oh, I know what the third one was. A consistent rumor. And this is more of a statement than a question. It's been disappointing to me that I've seen that claim made in discussions where LNC members are present and it remains unrebutted. I could just tell you, I personally find that not necessarily adhering to your duty as an LNC member to correct and really blatant misinformation that's out there in the public sphere. But number 3, I'd like to know the chair's reaction to the idea. And I can tell you, I've come around, and you know, I have been one of the resistant people that our CRM needs a lot of work. What would you say to some members that say this is just blame shifting, that we're blaming the CRM when it's not really the CRM? Because this is also another narrative that is out there. And the last thing I have to say is a statement. Last LNC, as shown by the convention, I was unjustly removed. I traveled the nation and still fundraised and raised money for this party. Shame on those of you who are trying to burn the party down because you didn't like a convention. Get elected as secretary and get removed one time, and then I'll listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you. The CRM questions, I mean, the reality is I sit with staff every single day. I have meetings with Andy Bukovich, our CTO. I have meetings with Canyon Gargan, the new systems architect. I am in Civi myself. I push our fundraising director, no offense, to try harder and harder and harder. I watch him do reports. I see what he gives Mr. Paget to work with. And it's crap. And I don't mean that as a strike against our fundraising director. It's a terrible tool and it's broken. And maybe it wasn't broken at one point. That's fantastic. The progress that we have made has been in spite of an extremely broken tool. Our operations director was absolutely appalled when I brought her on. And quite frankly, it's embarrassing that it's still a controversy. There's no way that any other professional organization would work with a piece of hot garbage like this and like not fire themselves. Like, it's just totally nuts and unprofessional that we continue this like charade of trying to prop up this piece of failing technology. Like, we just need to jump ship and just, whatever. At this point, it's no one's fault. It's just it's an extreme dysfunction in our organization that we have politicized software. That is so absurd. The thing that we need to do is we need to raise revenue, because when we generate more revenue, I have money for this ballot access fight. I have money for this passion project. I have money for this candidate. We have money for everything. That's what we want. I sit on the phones, I make calls to donors. I say thank you calls. I hear the calls that Mr. Paget makes. I sit in the meetings with staff. They are working their butts off. They are doing a phenomenal job considering that the technical challenges they have, to work with. And we just have to fix it. And it's not because we have incompetent people in tech either. We don't. We have perfectly competent individuals. We're just going to move on and we're going to do a great job. So for everyone who wants to argue about it on social media, that's okay. Like I have a life too, and I'm just going to spend it a different way than some of you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Ford.
To amplify and perhaps give my own take on your remarks, Madam Chair, I just want to remind people that we are in the business of politics. We are not a computer software company. We are not a real estate management company. And to the degree that we can focus exclusively on fundraising in order to fight the ever-present ballot access problem, in order to support candidates, that is what we need to do. And the tools, because they are only tools that underlie that, have no significance other than their ability to perform for us at a cost-effective rate. It really is that simple. And we need to remind ourselves as a board of directors that our focus needs to be laser-like now for the rest of this term in order to do those things. I also want to point out, I appreciate a couple of quick updates I've gotten from Mr. Paget and the staff, just kind of reaching out to LNC members and saying, this is the challenges, this is what we're doing, and this is what we've accomplished. It's wonderful, and I certainly appreciate the time that they invest in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Time has expired on this agenda item.
I would move to extend for 5 minutes to allow Mr. Hagopian to speak.
Okay. I'll second that. Any objections? Going once, going twice. Okay, hearing none. Go ahead, Mr. Hagopian.
Sure. Just wanted to touch really briefly on the discussion surrounding convention revenue and total revenue. I totally understand why we released total revenue this last month. It was incredible, and it shut down a lot of the criticism and stuff like that. But one of the reasons that we're having this convention revenue discussion is because we didn't wait until the financials came out. So I just want to urge everyone to keep that in mind. None of the numbers that you've heard yet are final. Angela's were the closest to right, probably because they came out of the Civvy system. You know what I mean? But nothing's final until the financials come out. And so, us touting back against the other people that are touting it all is just noise until the financials come out. And we really need to work on waiting until those come out, which should be earlier and earlier in the month now that the accountants are onboarded. And so I just wanted to mention that, like, that's why I haven't responded, just so everyone's clear on why I haven't responded, because I wait for the financials to come out because that's when they're official.
Thank you, Mr. Hagopian. All right. If there's no other questions, we're going to jump to our next agenda item, which is budget amendment proposals and budget review. Now, Mr. Redpath?
Yeah, I do have a question, and that is, money is being received for the convention in 2024. I mean, that should not be well, it's cash, obviously, cash in the door. It should not be recognized as revenue until the time of the convention. Is that what is going on? I mean, I asked the treasurer about that.
I'm talking literally about how much money came in. That's that's not.
There's been no convention revenue recognized as revenue on the financials.
Yeah, when I say we raised X number of dollars, I mean it literally came in. I'm not releasing a preliminary report, if that makes sense.
Okay, so the revenue numbers you're citing do not contain cash receipts for convention packages.
I posted some convention revenue on the list out of the $180,000 that we made last month. I put some of that.
If I may, I was being facetious, but it was about 13,000. So the number is of people that are purchased packages. I think it was 13,500 to be exact, but it was people that have purchased packages, but it's not being counted as actual revenue in the report. And Mr. Hagopian can correct me if I'm wrong.
Our October report isn't out yet. I gave everyone a courtesy update of how much money we had raised.
Correct.
I hope that clears that up. But we have already moved on to the next agenda item, and we need to stick to that, guys. unless somebody wants to move that we go back.
Well, Mr. Redpath had a question and it's kind of left hanging out there.
Okay.
If I
Um,
can, or
Go.
if I understood Mr. Redpath's question, the 180 was an announcement, not financials. The 180 does include convention revenues. As Angela stated, there was about 13 in there, we think.
Okay.
Every previous financial report that we've published does not include convention revenue, even if there was convention revenue hit.
Correct.
Restricted convention revenue, I should say. There is some convention revenue that is not restricted. There is no restricted convention revenue in any of the financials that we published.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to jump to our next agenda item, and then I think I'm going to call on you, Madam Secretary, if that makes sense. It's budget amendment proposals and budget preview with portions that may be in executive session. Madam Secretary, did you have your hand up or no?
No, I had it for the other item, but we can discuss this on the list because I don't think our policy manual says we don't count convention revenue as revenue. It just says it's earmarked to pay bills, but it's revenue, and I think we've always counted it as that, but we can clear this up on the list.
Let's clear it up on the list. Mr. Hagopian?
Yeah, I was just gonna respond, but we can clear it up on the list.
Yeah, let's do it on the list.
Will as of next month.
Yeah,
Madam Secretary, you're right. We're fixing it with the accountants as of next month.
Okay, budget amendment proposals and budget review. I don't recall, Mr. Hagopian, if you sent something in.
Madam Secretary, if you want to just pull up the Word document, I'll work off of the PowerPoint I sent for what I want to talk about. But if you just want to pull up the Word document with the amendment that I'm proposing.
I have to stop my chair so excuse me, my chair. I have to stop my share so that I can get the language. I do, because the chair asked me about this, and I'm not trying to, I do have a point of order, Mr. Hagopian, with all due apologies. And that is that all that was noticed was general budget amendments and not the even general gist of where they would be coming from of each line. If there were no members of the LNC absent, I would think we could make motions on a special meeting without objection that weren't properly noticed. But our policy manual, and that's what I was looking up right before the meeting, says for special meeting, the exact wording of the motion has to be noticed. Of course, it can be amended from there, but it has to be noticed. And this exact motion was not properly noticed. That doesn't mean we can't discuss and debate it tonight. And we can certainly pass it by email ballot. So, it can be dealt with right away. Or we can pass them tonight and ratify it later. But it is technically out of order this evening to move these motions tonight, in my opinion. That would be up to the chair, but I am raising the point of order in order to protect the rights of the absentees who are not present this evening.
So
when we pass it.
My preference is that we let Mr. Hagopian do his presentation and then we just do it in an email motion. And I will co-sponsor each one of them. And then you don't need to wait on co-sponsors. I will just co-sponsor them.
Okay, so I've got a number of motions. Basically, guys, this is just a matter of revenue falling short. Therefore, we need to adjust expenses and some expense lines coming in too high so that we're coming over the policy manual limits on those expense lines. So there's a number of things that we don't have a choice on. We can change the amount, but it has to go up, kind of thing. And then there's a number of things that really need to come down just because of lack of revenue. Essentially, what you're going to find here is that the proposed budget is going to showcase a $118,000 shortfall for the year. So that is revenue is going to be $118,000 below expenses. And there's a chance we pull that back. So Angela was talking about wanting to get 125 to 140 in revenue the next 2 months. I've only got 100 in each of the next 2 months. So let's say we got 145 in for 2 months. That would be 90 that we claw back out of that 118 shortfall. We're still short. So my point is even if we do really good on the revenue side, we have to make these budget cuts, in my opinion. So we will we'll walk through a few of these things here, but basically revenue is going to get cut down to have
Wait,
about.
Point of personal privilege. Can you screen share?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had it on the screen and I didn't screen share because I had to pull it out of my email. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what you'll see is I broke it down into revenue adjustments and expense adjustments. The revenue adjustments in total will bring our revenue down to 1.109 million for the year, 1.109 million for the year. And these are where I think the revenue adjustments need to come. These are not as important as the expense adjustments, obviously, because if we make more in revenue or less in revenue, it just changes the P&L. But does not get us in any policy manual trouble. But these should be pretty close to how they come in. If you go to the expense adjustments, this is where probably a little more discussion. We have adjusted the budget for other membership expense down a little to 15,000. We've increased the budget for general fundraising expense because we've already outpaced it up to 65,000. So that's an example of a budget that has to go up because we've outpaced the budget. Outreach and activism was adjusted slightly. Ballot access petitioning was taken way down, but to the level that I think we need to be at for the remainder of the year. So that doesn't put anything in jeopardy that we have planned. Ballot access legal was taken down, but again, does not put anything in jeopardy to what we have planned. Ballot access lobbying was taken down, does not put anything in jeopardy to what we have planned. Payroll services, I can't remember if that's up or down, but it was minimal. It just had to change. Software, hardware, and IT was adjusted, I believe, downward a little bit, but on pace for where we're at. Legal in general, we had overspent, so that had to come up. That may have to come up again, but we're leaving it at 85 for right now. If I see the October numbers and we have to move it again, then we'll move it again. And that's the other problem with, and I get it. I totally understand, Madam Secretary, and I get it. But that's the problem with putting these things out 3 weeks ago. I didn't know we had $180,000 months, and all these would have had to be deeper cuts. So that's the issue I have with noticing this stuff early is, Angela and I have been pinging back and forth over the 3 weeks and changing things. So accounting was way overspent as they got onboarded. It cost us more than we thought because of all the FEC issues and learning that system, which if anyone's ever dealt with it is pretty intense. And then also cleaning up a lot of the past issues that we've had. So that a budget went up. And so that total budget brings us in for expenses at 1.228 million for the year, which is where you get the 118K shortfall. Again, we entered the year with $250,000 in cash. So that's why we'll still have cash at the end. But this goes back to, I think, something that Madam Secretary has brought up a couple of times. Can we dip into the cash? Yes, we're allowed to dip into the cash. Here we are a little bit dipping into the cash, primarily due to the revenue shortfall. But again, that can be mitigated if we have a couple of real good months here. I'll open it up for questions.
Madam Chair and Mr. Maligan, if you would permit me to just give a piece of parliamentary information to Mr. Hagopian in response to a procedural question he had.
Let's do it.
Mr. Hagopian, I completely appreciate that the whole thing with budget proposals, you don't know what the numbers are. It's better to notice for worse, and then if you amend it to something that's less, it's within notice. So that could potentially solve notice requirements for special meetings in the future. Give your worst case scenario in giving notice. And then when you make the motion, you could always say, I'm amending this to be lower.
I
Or,
appreciate
yeah, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Malagon.
Worst case scenario, if it wouldn't be appropriate to move forward at this time, could we do this as an XCOM email ballot? Because I assume that this has to be done before we discuss the budget in December, so we really couldn't do it
Whole
here
LNC,
in Orange County.
whole LNC
Is it the
needs to
whole
vote.
Well, I mean, either way, however it's
On
done,
these
would it be appropriate to do
amendments,
that?
these amendments, the whole LNC should vote. The draft budget is going to be the XCOM separately.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, I mean, either way, I guess. So at this point, we could do theoretically, now that we have the numbers and, to circumvent the issue that the Madam Secretary just brought forward, we could vote on this through an email ballot, but discuss it now so that everyone would kind of know where everything is fine. Okay.
Yeah,
And
my
Mr.
my
Hagopian just
intention
chimed
is
in.
my intention is to co-sponsor Mr. Hagopian's motions right away. So then we don't need to wait on co-sponsors, and then he can just send them out. Mr. Tunevich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions for the treasurer, if I may. First, Todd, obviously the revenue shortfall you mentioned of 118K is above and beyond the prior one that we did that cut the budget about 26%, correct?
Correct. That's not a revenue shortfall. That is a budget shortfall. So revenue minus expenses equals that figure. The total revenue shortfall for the year is about 600,000.
Thanks. That was question number one. And then, so at this time, anyway, and I certainly support everything you're doing, and will support the vote. But at this time, then we are predicting a sort of a net loss, if you will, for the year of a small six-figure amount. Do I read that right?
That's correct. If we come in at 100,000 over the next 2 months,
Right.
I would be predicting.
Yep. Thanks. And the last, more of a comment than a question. And this is, I think, more for the general membership's benefit. When I look at the screen that's up now and I say, okay, adjust the budget, this one to this level, I think that the membership as a whole is probably less informed about, okay, is that a cut? Is that an increase? And we're expensing it, we're changing it to this number. What was it before? I would simply ask that as we address these things going forward, perhaps just that little bit more of context might make it more meaningful to the membership as a whole, if that's possible to do. Thank you.
Hey, Madam Secretary.
I was actually going to say somewhat similar to Mr. Tunevich. For when the motions are actually made, I think in order to be a properly formed motion, it has to say adjust budget whatever from whatever to whatever, because it's actually a motion to strike out and insert a different number, and we have to know what the former number was, or it's an incomplete motion. I would hope we could get to discussing everything we can discuss in open session, because I did have some questions on the things that have to be discussed in executive session. So I'd like to know if someone would just clue me into when we're ready to do that part. And my particular interest is in the two that have to be in executive session, staff and legal.
Actually, I was just going to ask that. I don't know what else needs to be drawn out here in open session, but if there's something I'm missing here before we go into executive session, because I have an idea of where we're going with this.
I don't
know where it's going to fall.
I don't have any anything really to discuss on this. I can answer questions, but I don't have like a whole bunch of stuff to throw at you. This is just, our treasurer wants to make cuts here and there and adjustments and increase things so that our budget is balanced by the end of the year. I feel good about the financial place that we're at right now, finally, but I don't really have anything else to add. I just have to keep plugging away at it. On that note, did someone want to move to go into executive session so you can discuss the couple of things you want to talk about in greater detail?
I'll move to go into executive session to discuss the legal, well, I guess, Madam Secretary, if you'd like to make the motion, because you have those particular items in mind, and I don't know exactly what they are.
Okay,
Perhaps I
and
jumped the gun. I'll second.
yeah, we'll need to make a bylaws compliant, so it would be move to go into executive session, and I'll put my name on it here instead, in order to discuss staff budget and pending litigation budget. That makes it bylaws compliant, and it is what I want to discuss.
I will
All right.
second, and I believe Miss Eiler is already on the call to monitor the room if necessary.
Any objections to going into executive session? Going once, going twice. All right. Madam Secretary, hearing no objection, can you help us jump into breakout rooms?
Okay, let me see. I don't know if I think I might have, let me see here. I might have not set this up automatically the way I did, but we'll get it there. Yeah, I need to create it and assign manually. That's fine. So I'm gonna create a room. You guys are gonna be going into what's called, well, I'm gonna rename it. What's just called room 2, which is such a good name. So I'm gonna
Room
rename it
2.
to executive session, and I'll start assigning people.
All right, we're going to room 2. We're going to stand at ease for just a couple of minutes. Quick bathroom break, anybody who needs one, and while we figure this out.
And I'll make Carrie a co-host before I
Thank you.
leave this room.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. How are you this evening?
All is well here. I've been doing the live blog for Independent Political Report. As an interesting minor aside, since there was some discussion of where the convention income is, remember that we report to the Federal Election Commission, which requires a cash flow report so that all of the income shows up when it comes in. And the financial reports to the LNC, when done by the treasurer and staff, are GAAP compliant, which is quite different. So the numbers don't match, but it's no big deal. Hi, Tim.
Hi. How you doing, George?
Very good, Tim. How are you?
Good.
Are you still in, if I recall correctly, Nevada, or do I misremember?
No, you remember correctly. Still here.
Oh, good evening. This is Sylvia Arrowwood from South Carolina. And we had our convention this weekend, and it was just really, really great. And Saturday evening, we had the 6 presidential candidates in a debate, and everyone was respectful. The debate was hosted by Numbers and Words podcasters that are both libertarians, and they're professors of economics at 2 different universities. And I was just pleased that, everything went so smoothly. It was unreal. And we got 2 years to get ready for the next one.
There is a tape of the debate up. I watched it this afternoon.
Oh, okay. Well, I tried to find it when I got home from the convention, but it said it was temporarily taken down because they want to clean it up a little. What that exactly means, I don't know, but being there live was really great. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And everyone behaved and it was quiet because, of course, we had a professional visual people there to tape everything with all the cameras and microphones, and everyone that was live was told, please just be as quiet as you can because this equipment will pick up dropping a piece of paper.
Is this how you elect national delegates, or is there some process next spring or summer?
No,
Oh,
we
spring.
did that Saturday, right before lunch, I believe. No, right after lunch, I'm sorry. And we vote. And we're only entitled to, so far, we think we're entitled to 16. We're hoping for maybe another 1 or 2 because they may decide to allot us 1 or 2 more votes.
Did you fill it up?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, we have potentially we took the top 16. We color coded it, and then there was I'd say another 25 maybe trying for alternate. And then if people back out, then we get slotted up.
You may well have been too busy to notice, but Independent Political Report had Stuart Flood there as our reporter interviewing each of the presidential candidates. He reports that he'll have a series of stories on Independent Political Report over the next several weeks.
Right. Well, I had dinner at the table with Stu, and we chatted quite a bit. And he was busy as a beaver, I'll tell you that. He was here and there and everywhere, trying to catch up with the candidates and write down what he could and record what he could to put it together. But we were all happy to see him. I hadn't seen him for a while myself. Guess he was sick for a while there, and he's doing a lot better. Very nice gentleman.
Do you elect your state committee at that convention too? Or is there some other process?
Yes, no, we did that also. That's probably the main function of our convention, is to elect the delegates for DC and to elect our state officers. And that was done. And I thought it was nice because it wasn't like someone got 999 votes and then some other poor soul got one. I mean, it was really nip and tuck and close because we have a lot of good people and there was competition for almost every office.
If someone has in line of sight the agenda, is there much after this is the executive session ends, or is that it?
That's it. And we don't adjourn, we recess, and then I guess in 2 years we'll be meeting in another city. And this particular convention was in the Charleston area where I live. So I wasn't staying at the hotel. I went back and forth.
Oh, no, I was referring to the LNC meeting. They're in executive session at the moment. And
oh, yes.
Clear if they were going to have more business after this or if this is it, except for the formal stuff when they come out of session.
Well, according to what I have, after executive session is just closing ceremony, announcements, and adjournment.
Thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome.
In that case, as it is actually fairly late here, I shall bid you all adieu. Stay well and in good health, all of you.
Good night, George.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Would you
care,
like,
Mr. Phillies.
Dr. Phillies?
Yes, Jonathan.
Would you like me to email you or something if they do come up with something else?
I would take that as a courtesy. I'm not sure
Okay.
I'd be able to get into the meeting again, but if they do something else, it'll be on the YouTube, so that's good.
Okay, well, I will try to get in touch with you somehow. I think I can on Facebook, so I'll try to get in touch with Facebook if there is something else that comes down.
And if it's nothing major, I'll find out about it, but I much appreciate the courtesy.
No problem.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sylvia, who moderated your debate?
Boy, I've got their name. Hold on. They're podcasters. They have a podcast called Words and Numbers, and they're each a professor. Hold on, I have it right here. Anthony Davies. Okay, yeah.
I don't recognize that name.
Okay, he's a professor of economics somewhere. Huh. See, I don't even have my glasses on here.
I'm the chair of the Wisconsin affiliate, and we've been kind of scrambling because our longtime convention committee chair decided to step away, and so we're kind of trying to figure this out as we go along. But we're planning a debate for our convention, which will be in April, and we're trying to figure out who we could get as a moderator. I reached out to Larry Sharp. I haven't gotten a response from him yet. I just think that he would be I've seen him interview candidates on his show, and I'm thinking he'd probably be a good moderator. But we're looking for, others as well, because, I'm not gonna bank on Larry to do it, but it would be great if he would.
And the other fellow was James R. Harrigan. Now I'm reading through the couple paragraphs here, and I don't see the exact schools they were at. Microeconomics, Carnegie Mellon University, and then Harrigan, he's from another university. It tells about the books they've read. But anyhow, you might want to check them out. The name of their podcast is Words and Numbers.
What are their names again? I'll do a quick Google search.
Okay, Anthony Davies, Davies.
Wait a second, Davies. Let me take a look at him first.
Okay.
Let's see. And he is a economics?
Yes, professors of economics, but the exact details I don't know.
He's at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh.
Right, yes. I think I had mentioned that. And then James R. Harrigan. He's also a professor of economics somewhere else.
James
R. Harrigan, Harrigan. So the candidates were challenged on some of their questions, to expand further on their answers.
University of Virginia. University
Yes.
of Virginia.
Okay.
I wonder who we have in Wisconsin. I'll have to look into that.
I don't know, but these fellows, if you're interested, they say that they know other professors of economics that do this also. So I don't know if you'd want, more than one, but their podcast is excellent. It's about politics, but it doesn't dwell on libertarians or libertarianism. It's just a general podcast on the latest news involving the parties. Very good. They're both excellent.
All right, I found the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Well, Wisconsin has a strategic planning meeting coming up pretty soon, so I'm gonna have to bail too. Nice chatting with everybody.
Okay, we'll see you again. Or
Nice talking with you.
Take care.
Yep, you too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Carrie, we're back.
Huzzah.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Yo, Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Carrie and
Hi,
JJ
everybody.
had a party.
Can you
We have
believe I'm
returned.
listening to a meeting in the middle of my daughter's championship softball game?
Is she winning?
How's she doing?
Yeah, it's like 8-2 right now.
Amazing.
Luck,
We're probably
luck.
going to
Nice.
mercy roll them. It's
Congratulations.
fantastic. Thank
Carrie
you.
has the coolest daughter I've ever met.
Amazing.
It's actually true.
This is so wholesome. I love it. Well,
For a-
thank you
for a
so
change.
much.
No problem.
We are back. Okay, I don't believe that we have anything else to go over in this meeting, except for one thing.
I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been moved, and I'll assume
Seconded.
Mr. Rufo at least seconded it.
Yep. Second.
It was very moved and seconded. Okay, any objections to adjournment? All right, going once, going twice, hearing none. We are adjourned at 9:07 p.m. Eastern Time. This is like the fastest online meeting we've had in many months. Thank you all so very much. Have a good evening, and I will keep you all updated on our upcoming executive committee meeting for the preliminary budget draft. Good
Good
night.
night, all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good night, everyone.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.